Hi, it's Mary Grube with Return to Elegance again, and I am making mac and cheese today. Very classic mac and cheese, and that is super simple to do. You come on over here and look. You can hear it. I've got my half a cup of butter, which is 1 cube, all melted, and we're ready to move forward. I've got my pot of water heating, and in fact this is at a boil right now, and I cover it because it makes it cook quicker. The whole thing is going to be, I'm going to be waiting for the macaroni to cook because that's how quick this is. So to my half a cup of butter, I'm going to add about 1/3 of a cup of flour, a tablespoon of dry mustard, and I've got salt and pepper to taste. I've got about 1/2 teaspoon of white freshly ground pepper and about 1 teaspoon of kosher salt here. And the reason that I'm using white pepper is obviously I don't want to see little black flecks. But that's to your taste. Okay, so I'm just going to dump all this in. And I'm going to whisk it. Okay, this would be called a roux. So this is going to be my thickening agent here. And you can see that that happens very fast. Okay, I've got my heat at medium. So the important thing to know when you're cooking is that you do continually adjust your heat. Depends on what you're cooking. When you fill a pan with food, that temperature of the pan is going to change. So adjust the heat accordingly, and when you flip it to the second side, you may need to turn your heat down. All right, same goes with this. So I know that this is at medium and I want it to be there, so I'm not going to adjust my heat right now, but I am going to continue to whisk, and I'm going to cook this about 1 minute total. And that's so I cook out any rawness in the flour. So I'm just going to continually whisk. Okay, so we're at about 1 minute. So the next step is I'm going to add my milk. Now, I'm going to add approximately 2 cups of milk. And I don't heat it, I don't do anything to it, I just add it right out of the refrigerator, but I do whisk constantly as I go, and I'm just going to eyeball 2 cups. But if you want to measure it out, that's up to you. See how it immediately starts to thicken like this. And you'll also notice, you can see there are lumps. I'm not worried about that. I'm adding a little bit less than 1 cup right here, and I'm using organic milk. And you can see that it looks kind of lumpy. Don't panic, just stay with it, keep going. All right. Get a little more milk in here. I've been making this for so many years that I don't worry about it. Okay, that's about 2 cups. And I'm using 2% organic milk, so come and look because this is very smooth now, as you can see. All right, so for added richness, I'm going to add a little bit of shaken heavy cream, maybe 1/4 of a cup. This is totally optional. I'll leave that up to you. It's just really yummy. And then I've got some reduced sodium Worcestershire sauce. You just shake it and put it in there. This is just to add some added flavor. About 1 tablespoon. Keep going with your whisk here. And remember, there was already salt that I've added. Okay, so now we're going to let this simmer and boil. I'm going to turn up my heat just a little bit because remember, I've added all that cold milk. So I'm going to turn up my heat and keep an eye on it. Once this comes to a boil, this is going to cook about 2 minutes. But you can see that's just the flecks of pepper in there. Okay? So now I've got my nice boiling water here. Okay? And I'm going to add 1 pound of elbows to this. Elbow macaroni. Now, if you don't have elbows, don't panic. Whatever small kind of pasta that you've got on hand, if you happen to have don't have any pasta and you're stuck, you just have macaroni, then just break it into bits. Nobody's going to tell on you, okay? Now give it a stir. We want this to come back to the boil. Now, a quick way to do that, it's already boiling, but a quick way to do that could be to just simply return the lid to the pot. You do want this dried pasta to come back to the boil as quickly as possible, okay? That's going to only take a minute at most. I do have this at pretty high heat. I've kept it at the boil, and I am going to stay with it and stir it just a little bit until that returns. And in the meantime, I'm going to check my sauce. So I'm going to cover it to bring it back to boil. And I've got this on medium-high heat now because I want this to come to a boil. This is the most you're ever really going to pay attention to this whole meal. It was right here in the very beginning. Now, I haven't added any salt to my pasta yet, so I'm waiting for it to come back to the boil. As soon as it does, then I'm going to add salt. Now, you always hear about, add salt to your pasta. It's optional. If you're on a restricted salt diet, don't add it. There's so many ways that salt is hidden in our food. You've salted this pot, you're going to salt that pot. Just keep that in mind, okay? And what I like to do is, splatters happen, so I like to keep a towel, a wet cloth kind of handy, maybe a little soapy. And I like to keep my work surface really clean and tidy. It's just at the end, when you're all done, the last thing you're going to want to do is clean up a sloppy, spattered work surface. And that happens, that's part of cooking. But it sure does make it a lot easier when at the end of your cooking you've just got very minimal amount of splattering to clean up. And this is becoming nice and thick now. It happens pretty quickly if you want to come and look. See how that's a lot thicker? It's almost the consistency of heavy cream right now. So this is probably a minute away from boiling. Let's peek at our pasta. There it goes. Okay, so now our pasta is back to the boil like this. Okay, that's great. So I'm going to give it a stir. And I always have salt and freshly ground pepper on my counter. So I'm going to add, that's a little bit more than a teaspoon here. So less than a tablespoon, I'm going to do about 3 teaspoons. So 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon, so I added about a tablespoon of salt to a pound of pasta. You might hear, salty as the sea and all that, but remember that will translate into how salty your food is as well. So just keep that in mind. Read your package, see how much sodium is in it. Just know what you're adding to your food. Know what sauce is going to go on your food. So think about that. Okay. So once this comes to a really hard boil, which it's pretty much there, but I'm just going to watch it because I don't want it to stick to the bottom. But my sauce is coming really beautiful. So this is nearly there as far as the boil, and as you can see, I've got the 2 things going at once. It's so fast. This takes anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes to cook, and I like my mac and cheese cooked. Not al dente pasta. I don't like a hard pasta in my mouth. I like the softness of a really well-cooked pasta for this. Now, if you were going to do more than just add cheese to the pasta, you were going to then maybe do a breadcrumb topping, that's very traditional, and then bake it in your oven and get a real crisp topping, then your pasta will continue to bake in the oven. So in that case, you do want to make it an al dente pasta. But today we're not. My family isn't crazy about baked mac and cheese. They like the nice softness of just the cheese sauce and the pasta, so it's what your family likes. And again, I'm just going to keep stirring this so it doesn't stick on the bottom. I have left it pretty high still, but I am being mindful of how long that's cooking. Okay, so now this is boiling and has been for about 30 seconds, so the clock is on. I'm going to turn down my heat just a little bit because I don't want this to burn. I also don't want it to burn me, because sometimes these bubbles can come up really high. And just keep going. So what you have here is a nice classic white sauce, and you can add virtually any cheese that you want to this. There's no limit. Combination of cheeses, whatever it is that you like. This is great if once we add our cheese. This is great. Maybe you wanted to add a little bit of cayenne pepper or maybe some hot sauce to it. If you like that, do that. Maybe you want to use this for the basis of a really delicious nacho or a chip dip, whatever. You can add fresh herbs to this. You could add garlic to this, onion to this, whatever your taste is. You could make a sort of cheeseburger kind of mac and cheese and add ground beef or chicken to this that's cooked. I personally like the traditional mac and cheese. And we're going to have it with a nice salad. It's delicious with watermelon. It's a nice stovetop meal. And when you're really out of things that you're tired, here in Pennsylvania it snows so much, maybe you just want something warm and comforting, this is a perfect meal for that. And very reasonable to make for a family. Okay, so here's my sauce. It's really happily boiling over here. Alright, when it gets to this point, so it's cooked for 2 minutes, you can see that's really boiling. Okay, I can't stir that down. It's been about 2 minutes. I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to add 2 cups of grated cheese. Now, I am adding grated cheese from a bag here. I have a life. You have a life. If you have time to go ahead and freshly grate your cheese, that's great. But for those of us with arthritic hands and busy lives, this works wonderfully. I've added a 3 cheese kind here and just stir it down. It's off heat. It's on heat. This is electric, but the heat is off. And I think I spent approximately 10 minutes cooking this whole thing. So this is really boiling now to the point it's lifting up the pasta and swirling it around. Okay, so I'm going to take this off heat. It's all done. I'm not even going to worry about tasting it right now. I know it's delicious. Alright, so now is when it's like this, in order to prevent your pasta from bubbling over and making a really not very fun mess to clean up, we're going to turn this down to about medium and just watch it. We definitely don't want it to simmer. We want it to boil. Okay. Alright, so we'll be back in just a few minutes and we're going to combine the cheese with the pasta and you're all done. Okay, so my pasta's cooked. Here, come here. You can see that there's lots of nice starch floating around in my water. Now, I would just recommend tasting it, okay? And this is nice and ready. It's a little hot, of course, right over a boiling pot, so be careful. I tend to have asbestos fingers, so I'm okay with it. Alright, so the other thing about whenever you cook pasta is you want to save a bit of the pasta water. So if I look at my food right here, there's a slight skin that's formed on my cheese sauce, and it's only been sitting here less than 5 minutes. So it's nice and thick. If I wanted to thin this sauce, I would just add a tiny bit of the pasta water to it, okay? Alright, so I have my culinary all ready. Today I'm not really going to be using much of the pasta. The other thing is I could just leave a tiny bit in the pot. Into my pot, and that way there's a little bit of water. And I always rinse my culinary out right away with hot water, because that way the starch doesn't settle on it and it just helps with cleanup. I'm not going to rinse it, I'm not going to do anything to it, because I want my sauce to stick to this. And I'm just going to add all this yummy cheesy goodness. That's it. Serve it up with some freshly grated pepper on top and maybe a little more cheese. I hope you enjoy this. Please give my Facebook page, Return to Elegance with Mary Grube, a like. Thank you. See you next time.